After many years of trial and error, I have learned a lot about growing vegetables during the summer here in Florida. So get ready to learn from my mistakes and my successes. I'm going to share with you what I grew last year, what worked, what didn't work, and how I'm going to switch up my garden this summer so that I can ensure I have nothing but productive plants. Hi guys, I'm Patrina with Homegrown Florida, and today we're going to be focusing on getting ready for our summer garden. So one of my very first videos was what I was going to plant in my summer garden. I cannot believe it has already been a year of my channel on YouTube, and thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. We have developed a community that I absolutely love. But let's get back to our seeds. So last year I grew Manaho, Jericho, Yukon Savio, and Tokyo Becana. And I have to tell you, of all of these, the ones that did the best were the Tokyo Becana, but it still did not last the whole summer. The rest of them were kind of duds. Now, the one that I grew last year that I didn't mention in the video that I am growing this year is my Ethiopian kale. This is a great, amazing green to grow during the summer, mainly because it actually tastes like a green. Some of the tropical spinaches and other greens that we can grow here in Florida don't necessarily taste the best from my perspective. The other thing that I did, and I'm sure you've seen from lots of my other videos, and I'll put them down in the description, is that I enhanced my indoor growing. So I have my AeroGarden farm, I have a lead pot, and I have my original AeroGarden harvest, and I am growing 2 types of romaine. These are new types. They are designed for hydroponic growing, specifically to reduce the amount of leaf tip burn, which has been a common problem for me. And this is Gladius and Chicharita. I'll let you know how these do in the AeroGarden, so if you want to give them a shot. But so far, neither one of them have produced leaf burn. I'm just hoping that they're a good crunchy variety. I'm kind of wanting that crunch that romaine gives you, like the kind in the grocery store, but with the actual taste that lettuce is supposed to have. Now the next set of seeds that I'm growing is squashes, and there's really only one squash that I'm growing that I grew last year, and that is the Seminole pumpkin. Now they grow super easy, but to be honest, I'm not super thrilled with the taste of a Seminole pumpkin. It's good, it's not bad, but there are a ton of different varieties that grow and taste even better. One of which is one of my favorites, you've heard me talk about it before, is the Tahitian melon squash. But I'm not going to be growing this year, and the main reason for that is the way that I'm growing a lot of my pumpkins this year is up trellises and up my palm tree, and I don't think that this guy is going to do super well that way. I also grew the early prolific straight nut summer squash. That did pretty decent, although when it gets super hot, it didn't flower. It wouldn't put the fruit on. The early white bush scallop did completely poorly. It would not flower or pollinate at any level once it got above 80 degrees. And then the star of the show, I didn't have a chance to grow it this year because I hadn't tasted it at the time when I was planting, but now I have tasted it, and it is out of this world #1 best squash taste, which is the Burgess buttercup squash. This guy tastes amazing, and the cool thing about it is it has a really thick rind, so the pickle worms never even tried to get through this guy. And because it had such a thick rind, it is the one that has held out the longest for me in storage. So if you haven't grown these, they're not the most pretty pumpkin or squash. They're not the most gorgeous looking one, but when it comes to flavor, it is outstanding, so good, and they did grow during the summer. What I will be growing this summer is the hybrid butternut winter squash butter baby. We got 2 of these. We got one on the trellis and one up the palm tree over there, and I'm trying a new type of scallop. It's called a patty pan summer squash. It is by Johnny Seeds, and it was listed as something that can handle the heat. So I'm hoping that I can get a scallop squash. And I am particular to scallop squashes because I feel like they just hold up better to cooking. So when you have a zucchini or like the straight neck yellow squashes, when you cook them, they get really soggy. But the patty pans or the scallop squashes, they have that weird, spaceship looking shape. They don't have as many center seeds, and so they stay super crispy. And y'all know I love crispy vegetables. So I am out on the hunt to see which one is going to grow during our summers. So we're going to give this guy a shot. Now, from a beans perspective, I usually grow lots and lots of beans, but I have too many in my house. I have too many beans and we need to eat them. So I'm not going to be growing my Puerto Rican black bean, although these are by far one of the best, not one, the best black bean to grow during the summer. Outstanding. Edzuko beans, I really love them, but they're a tiny bean and you have to grow a lot of plants to get a substantial harvest. I've been growing these for 2 years in fall, spring, winter, summer, all year round. They do best in spring and fall, but even with like 50 plants, I'm still only filling about a pint-sized jar of beans, which just isn't, it's not prolific enough for me. The Mayflower bean didn't really take off here, so I didn't really go very far with that one. The Texas cream, which is a cowpea, this one did amazing and has done amazing, but like I said, I have quarts and quarts of this stuff, so I'm not going to be growing it this year. The few that I am going to be growing is I'm going to be growing the whippoorwill cowpea, and I like this particular cowpea because it reminds me of a tiny pinto bean. It's outstanding flavor. It doesn't really look like a black-eyed pea, and it doesn't really taste like a black-eyed pea. I grew some of them last year just to try them, and I love them. And they are prolific, just like the Puerto Rican black bean, but not needing as much space. So I'm going to be growing these. And then the Thai soldier bean, I'm definitely growing as a green bean alternative. I still have plenty of the edamame substitute, so I won't be growing it for that. I will be growing it for the dry bean and the green bean alternative. And then Jackson Wonder lima beans. These are a beautiful little purple and white lima bean. And I grew them last year just to try them to see if they worked and to get enough seed to grow a lot of plants. And they did good. I was shocked at how well they did throughout the summer. They do get some bug damage, but for the amount of beans that you're getting and the size of these beans, which are pretty big for a bean, they were a good production bean. So I'll be growing these again this year. Peppers. Y'all know I went all in last year. I'm going all in this year. But last year I grew a lot of hot peppers. I grew, what did I grow? I grew jalapenos, I grew Anaheim chili peppers, then I grew the traditional, Cubanellas, the Yolos, the California Wonder. I didn't get very far with my pimento peppers, and I didn't get very far with my red cherry peppers. But this year, I did get farther with them, and I have nothing but sweet peppers in there. So I have the pimento, and it is growing beautifully. Great tasting pepper, and you can make it into pimento. You can make it into the pimento pieces that you see inside the olives. Then you have the Yolo sweet pepper, which is a pretty big green and red type pepper. The large red cherry peppers, this is the actual sweeter variety, not quite as hot. I got some Cubanellas because they just grow like weeds down here. I'm trying this one, which I'm super excited about, which is called Lesia. And it is it's a heart-shaped pepper, y'all, and it's considered one of the sweetest, one of the most tastiest pepper. And so I'm growing these. I'm growing a Chocolate Beauty bell pepper, so it's a brown bell pepper. And then I've got paprika peppers, which are outstanding taste-wise. And then we're doing the California Wonder again. So lots of different peppers. For herbs, last year I grew red vein sorrel, lemon balm, and basil. Now the lemon balm and the red vein sorrel, along with many other things that I have grown in my green stalks, are perennials basically. They say that they're annuals, but they have never died and they just keep coming back. So I guess it's like our area. The one that did pretty well was basil, and I think the only reason this one did so well during the heat and the rains is because they were in my green stock where it gets a significant amount of shade, and that helped it last a lot longer. So I'm going to be doing this one again. I don't have to do the other two because they're still growing. A German chamomile, which is doing very well. It's a smaller plant than the chamomile that I think we're all used to seeing, but I've been harvesting the flowers because I want to make my own sleepy time tea. And so chamomile is a good herb or flower to add to your teas for that calming effect. And then I'm changing it up, and other than the red vein sorrel, I'm going to be growing a green sorrel, and this one has a much larger leaf so that it looks more like a salad green. So that one's super exciting. Flowers, I'm going all in with flowers, guys. I started them last year. I just touched on a few of them that I was going to grow. I did sunflowers, some short sunflowers. I did some red torch Mexican. I did some zinnias. And then I did a chief silecio. This one did not do well. All the rest of them bloomed well and created pretty plants. But I'm adding. So other than the sunflowers and the zinnias, I'm doing calendula, which I use as a medicinal plant. But it's also a very beautiful flower to grow in the garden. I'm growing coreopsis, which is a Florida native yellow flower, which is super cute. I'm growing an Alaskan salmon nasturtium from Baker's Creek. For all of you guys that told me I need to check out Baker's Creek, you were so right. Baker's Creek is awesome. I mean, the seeds are so different. I love them. It's such variety. So I started those, and those are already blooming. They look beautiful. I started a giant zinnia, and they are in all different colors, and I've had so many compliments on these zinnias because they're just, I have one that is a fuchsia color. It is so beautiful and so vibrant, and all the butterflies love it. I adore straw flowers, but I hear that they're kind of a little hard down here. So I have got some copper red straw flowers that are growing in the green stock and in the bed. So we're going to see which one does better. I have orange Hawaiian marigolds all around my peach tree and in one of my beds, and they have done super well. It took a little while to germinate. You basically kind of have to forget about them. If you want to do them in trays, just keep them in trays, keep them watered, and just forget about them, and then they grow. And then I am growing mammoth sunflowers, and I'm growing them up front in the front of my house because I just didn't have room for mammoth sunflowers in my backyard. And these are the ones that get very large. They get like 12 feet high, guys. It's silly, but I want to be able to grow some really big sunflowers. I just think they're beautiful, but also I'd like to be able to harvest some of the sunflower seeds if the birds don't get them all. And last year I grew some different types of things. I grew long grain rice, which, guys, works. It works. It works down here. Just don't give it any drainage holes. You want the container to flood. The hard part about growing rice is the cultivating part. So getting it separated from the chaff, which is the thing that holds the seed inside, and the seed inside is the part that we eat. That's the rice. That's the hardest part. But if you want to grow it for prettiness, it is a beautiful plant to grow. But if you have a way to separate the chaff from the seed, by all means, grow rice. Grows great, and it's a wonderful grain. 42-day tomato. I grew this last year thinking, let me try to outrace the sun. And yeah, this is a determinate tomato from M.I. Gardner. It did germinate, it did grow, and it produced 4 tomatoes all at once. 4 cherry tomatoes. This was a fail. That's not a good one for down here. Maybe it was me, but I had plants, I had tomato varieties, determinants and indeterminants all around it, and they did pretty well, pretty exceptional. That one, not so much. The icebox watermelon didn't do great either. I'm not exactly sure what variety it is. It just says icebox, which is usually a size requirement, but maybe it is a variety. I don't know. You guys tell me. And then Curdo, I never know how to pronounce this. I got to look that up. New Corodo carrot. This was a great carrot that I grew in fall, spring, and winter. But when I grow them during the summer, they might be heat loving. They're not that heat loving. So they did grow tops. And if you're interested in growing the tops, by all means, these will grow during the summer. But if you're interested in eating them for the roots, not so much. Now this year, in my different or rare category, I am going to be growing some more roselle. I'm growing as many as I possibly can right now. I'm at 8, although I am tempted to start another 2 so that I can get up to 10. We'll see. And I'm going to do it. I'm going to bite the bullet. I'm going to grow loofah, mainly for the immature fruit, to eat it like a zucchini substitute. That is my main reason for growing it. Although I'm sure some of them, just like with cucumbers, they're going to get away from me, and I'm going to allow them to grow to full size so that way they can dry and I can create loofah sponges. I thought that might be a fun gift to give to my family at Christmas time as stocking stuffers. I will probably doctor them up, make them pretty, add some ribbons, those kinds of things. And they will be ready about that time, dried and everything. So I'm hesitant because these guys are monsters. They're kind of like the Puerto Rican black beans. They get huge. So I'm debating on where to put them, but more than likely they're going to go on the trellis once the corn is done. So I'm going to be starting them kind of late. But we have such a long season here, I suspect at least the first couple ones will dry to completion. But like I said, even if they don't, the main reason I'm growing these is for the immature fruit, which you can eat as zucchini. So besides all these guys, which are the vegetables, I do like to cover crop during the summer. And the main way that I'm going to be cover cropping any area that is open, which is the important part, open, is sun hemp. I grew it last year. I did just a small part of the area to grow sun hemp. And sun hemp is a really good cover crop for down here in Florida because number one, it loves the heat. Number two, it's probably not going to seed, which is important, and I'll explain why. It's probably not going to seed unless you're in the deep, deep South Florida. I'm talking Key West, Florida area, because it just doesn't get hot enough or long enough for sun hemp to seed. And that's good because you want it not to seed. One, you don't want it to scatter seed everywhere, but number two, you want the benefits that it gives by not seeding, which is that it pushes that nitrogen down into the soil. This is a nitrogen fixing plant. So it's going to improve the soil in a number of ways. Number one, it's going to add that nitrogen. Number two, it's going to cover the soil, and you're going to want to seed it super heavy. And number three, it creates these huge stalks. They remind me of corn, but they have these leaves that come out. But they're super tall, and they just keep getting taller. And what I like to do is once they're about, 5 feet tall, I will chop them to about 3 feet tall, and I'll just dump the stuff that I chopped off down in to create like a mulch in it, and then I let it regrow again, and it just keeps growing and cutting and growing and cutting through the whole season. And what I'm producing there is biomass. So we live in Florida. The beds sink. I don't know if you've noticed that. I've noticed that. I haven't seen that in a lot of our northern gardeners friends. I think it has to do with the sand underneath the beds, but the ground sinks. It just keeps sinking and sinking, and no matter how much stuff I keep putting in it, I'm always having to top off my beds. Cross our fingers, we're going to see how that goes. But as our spring crops start to go away, I'm going to start seeding that sun hemp wherever there's room where these guys are not. Now, if you're growing in ground, this is a great way to start prepping that soil. So if you're not going to grow during the summer, don't leave your soil empty. Don't leave it without something planted in it. It's just the soil life starts to die when there's nothing there to feed it and to feed the other bugs and things like that. And the aeration, it starts to get compacted, it drowns. There's just a lot of bad things that happen when you leave something not planted. Our stuff just dries out, turns to dust, and everything dies inside of it. Now you could cover it with like a plastic tarp, but that's called solarizing, and solarizing is going to kill all the soil life underneath. And that might be good if you have a root knot nematode problem. But if you want to maintain your soil life, cover crop it. If you have a brand new bed or a brand new in-ground area, cover crop it. If you have a bunch of soil that you have used in containers and you used it to grow your tomatoes, or you grew your potatoes or your peppers or whatever, and it's just this used soil and you want to refresh it, cover crop it. Get you some sun hemp. Another really good one is cowpeas. You don't have to spend that much money. Go up to the grocery store, get you a bag of black-eyed peas, pour them all over. Just get you something to lay down that's inexpensive, easy to grow, and those two are my absolute favorites. Make sure to give me a thumbs up if you found this helpful, or maybe you got some ideas of what you're gonna grow in your summer garden based on some of the stuff that you saw here, or maybe what you're not gonna grow based on some of the challenges I experienced. Head down into the comments. I'm going to throw up a video here of how I grow my lettuce all summer long, traditional lettuce all summer long in my AeroGarden. So make sure to check that out. Happy gardening, guys!